Was in short a campaign cycle like no other that produced a president of the United States like none other, one whose observance of Inauguration Day traditions may wind up being the closest he ever comes to acting like all the presidents who preceded him. Brett.
James, thank you. Let's bring in our panel. Tom Rogan, columnist for National Review and Opportunity Lives. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor at Real Clear Politics. Katie Pavlich, news editor at townhall.com. And Charles Hurt, opinion editor for the Washington Times. Charlie, do you think people yet realize, especially in the Democratic Party, why Donald Trump won?
No, and I think that has probably a lot to do with why we've seen all of these protests in the weekend after the inauguration, because I think a lot of people are still completely bewildered. But you know, I think one of the most important things about Trump's ascendancy is the fact that he was running as a Republican, but the first thing he did is he ran against the Republican Party. And he didn't just run against them, he ran against them ferociously, viciously attacking Republicans. And he has impeccable timing. And he understood the moment that so many people, so many conservatives or right or leaning voters in the country who typically vote Republican were so fed up, not only with Democrats, but also with Republicans. And so then once he cleared that field and then was able to sort of, face off against the Democrat, he had offended everybody that people were disgusted with and tired of.
A.B., the Democrats this election seemed to abandon a part of their base, and that was the white working class, rural, unionized working men and women, and that came back to bite them.
Well, in truth, they had been slipping away for a while. Some of them did end up voting for Barack Obama in 2012 and then voted for Trump, but they were really hemorrhaging that support for a while, sort of tilting towards a coalition of, very well-educated whites along with minorities and young people, and really hewing to this Obama coalition that could bring them success and they hoped would bring Hillary Clinton success. And the truth is, part of that coalition stayed home, and had they come to the polls, she would have won. But she clearly turned her back on those communities, even with President Obama at the time criticizing her, saying, "You've got to go to Ohio, you've got to go to Iowa, I'll go for you." And her campaign saying, "No, let's just write it off." And it was a fatal error.
Katie, we see Saturday these marches, the Women's March, not only here in Washington, D.C., but around the country. And it looks like impressive numbers in a number of different cities, including here, saying and raising concerns about women's issues and also about this new president. I guess people look at that and say, where were they at the election?
Well, and they would come back with the argument we've been hearing for months, is that, well, they voted for Hillary Clinton, the popular vote, which of course she won, and so I would say a lot of these women were in California, for example. But
or
overall,
New York,
or
Boston,
right.
Like
but the truth is that Donald Trump won the election through the Electoral College. That's how it works, and it's fine that they're out marching in the streets now, but they probably should have done this before Election Day to come out and get the energy out for Hillary Clinton. The fact is that the Obama coalition didn't show up for her. Donald Trump won not because Republicans came out to vote for him, but because independents and, as we've just been discussing, voters that the Democrat Party has been ignoring for years now decided not to go after. Even the Bernie Sanders type voters that they decided and took advantage of and for granted, thinking they would come out and vote for Hillary Clinton. And when you actually look at the numbers over the course of Barack Obama's presidency, actually, I'm very surprised that we didn't see this coming, and especially the Democrats didn't see this coming. When you see the astounding number of 1,000+ seats that Democrats have lost across the country over the past 8 years, and not having to look at that as the DNC and going, what is happening and how do we prevent this going into an election that would be tough anyway for Democrats to take control of, considering there was a Democrat in office for the past 8 years, and historically it's difficult for the incumbent party to remain in power.
Obviously, Tom, Barack Obama's legacy, first African-American president, saved us from a recession going over the cliff, he would argue. But Brit Hume over the weekend said, the biggest part of his legacy, 2 words, Donald Trump. That's who follows Barack Obama.
Right, and I think it's striking that that is the ultimate reality, that for all the campaigning, the president who came in with this narrative of hope and change, that he was going to fundamentally reshape American politics, has been, to say repudiated, the word, it's hard to define a word in terms of what Donald Trump represents there. But I think there are two interesting things that come out. As Katie notes, you've seen that usurpation of power from Democrats at the state legislative level over this president, or the former president's tenure in office. That, I think, fixes more with the sort of traditional, the Paul Ryan element of restrictions and spending, or the Tea Party element in the House. I wonder, though, to the degree that now Trump has come in, as tomorrow he gets to work in the first day of the new week, what are we going to see in terms of the schisms between those House Republican elements that really do not like, for example, the idea of infrastructure spending that he has discussed, but also the fact that Trump really does feel this mandate, this bringing, as AB notes, of traditional Democratic voters. So I think there's a brewing conflict below the surface here that will be interesting to assess.
Yeah, I bring back up the Saturday protests because they were impressive, but there were also some moments in those protests that some of them said that they wanted to be the liberal Tea Party, the left's Tea Party, and start this movement on day one of this new administration. Here is Madonna. We're going to play the usual game. What happens if a Republican said that about the Obama administration or President Obama? But can they channel this into something as you're just starting in this new Trump administration, or does he have at least some leeway to kind of get something across the finish line?
Well, the problem with comparing this to the Tea Party is that the Tea Party was actually coalesced around a real set of ideas and beliefs. Madonna, what she said is idiotic. And if you go and you talk to a lot of these people protesting, and a lot of them are, it's wonderful. They're just, they're expressing exercising their free right to expression.
And I should say it was peaceful.
Yeah, and peaceful. And I always, this is my measure. Do they put their trash in the trash cans? And they did. I was very impressed. They put it either in the trash can or right around the trash can.
Okay, that's the Charlie measure. I like
that matters to me.
All right.
But you talk to them. They're not coalesced around a single cohesive message. They're mad, they're angry, they don't like Donald Trump, they don't like, but there isn't that heart that they're not joined together the way I think the Tea Party.
Well, and I would argue real quickly, they better be careful about becoming the leftist Tea Party, because the media will categorize them as racist and bigoted for simply disagreeing with the White House. So I would just give them a warning on that one.
I also want to see how the March for Life coverage goes. Right. January 27th. We'll see.
They always throw their trash in the trash.
They always
They bring their own trash.
Charlie's very impressed with that. So what impressed you or depressed you most about Inauguration Weekend? Let me know on Twitter at Bret Baier. Use the hashtag Special Report, or on Facebook at facebook.com/BretBaierSR.